Jesus, you're loud.
You guys
Wow.
sometimes you gotta love the conversations that's going on right before I say good morning and welcome to B Cube Sunday morning. We are joined today with the two travelers, California to Vermont, David Gerrold, who still is occasionally looking in his basement for that socket that he knows he
Kind
has,
of, you
and
know. We're just going to
Jim
order a
Wright.
new one off Amazon. The Amazon driver is ready to. He came for Thanksgiving. He was so familiar.
The I had the same problem. I was going down to Harbor Freight, and the guy at Harbor Freight finally says, "What's your name?" Because my account is in Suzanne, my wife's name, and he says, "When we decide to ban you from the store, we got to be able to say something other than Suzanne's husband." Because I was filling in so many little gaps from stuff I lost. But Jim, you're back from Michigan.
Yeah, part of me, about 80% of me is. I think the other half is still lost somewhere along the road. I'm not. I don't guarantee that I'm all here today, but most of me is. So,
Well,
good morning.
we'll send somebody up to scour I-65
No,
for you.
no, there's nobody enough to say. I mean, nobody I hate enough to set up I-65 on Black Friday weekend. Nobody. Well,
So,
maybe one or two people.
well, you both had some interesting experiences in the last month. Who's had the most interesting one and wants to tell us about it?
Got to be David.
Well, we drove 3,000 miles. Well, we loaded the truck. We drove 3,000 miles for 3 days of that drive. We didn't know if we owned the house we were moving to. But we arrived. The key was in the lockbox, and we moved in. We didn't have furniture for at least 3 or 4 weeks. We got half the furniture. We have not gotten the rest of the furniture. We need our bar stools. We need the rest of our couches. I need a box spring. But the house was in incredible shape, just beautiful, meticulous. The only thing is there was some minor damage to one of the front porch lights and the storm door because somebody hadn't closed it and the wind blew it open. So we're going to get the real estate agent to take care of that on threat of lawsuit. And because Sean has put up Christmas decorations, which he wouldn't do in LA because, why bother? He is having a great time. He goes out for late night drives or late night walks because he can, which he wouldn't do in LA. He doesn't like peopling, and as he calls it. So I was like, all right, I understand. And yet he's still going out much more than before. So he's having a great time. And and we bought a boat because the house is lakefront. So we have a boat. And we also, I know this might shock a few people who think I'm a pacifist, which I mostly am. But we have coyotes in the area. We may have bears. We're not sure. And a couple of days ago, we had a couple of bucks fighting for the right to mate with the doe that was standing and watching in our backyard. So we went on. Yeah, you don't have those problems, do you, Jim?
Oh yeah, actually we do. I know there may be bears here in the Panhandle of Florida, but they are the saddest bears I have ever seen. I'm like, when the first time I saw one, someone said to me, "That's a bear." I moved here from Alaska. I'm like, that's an hors d'oeuvre. That's not a bear. What is that? It looked like a Pekingese or something. And they're the saddest bears I've ever seen. But the deer here, oh yeah, I got a yard full of deer. That's crazy. But I just came to Michigan. I just spent 5 weeks in Michigan, rural Michigan farm country, where it's deer hunting season right now. And so if you've been following me online, of course, you see all the pictures I post. And so if I'm out in the wilderness, I'm wearing very bright orange and, hunter orange and a hat and a hunter orange jacket so that I don't wind up on the hood of somebody's car. And there are deer there. I mean, if you're ever in Western Michigan,
you have to wait for the right season to put you on the hood of the car.
Yeah, funny. And the deer there are like cows because they stand all day in the cornfields, and so if you're in deer hunt, I was out. I don't know where the hell I was. I was out some wildlife sanctuary, some remote wildlife sanctuary in Western Michigan, and I heard somebody blazing away. You know, obviously, like I said, it's deer hunting season. I hear blam, 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 and I counted 14 rounds. I'm thinking, you know, deer hunting is not for you, because if you need 14 high-powered rounds to kill a deer, maybe you should just go to the freezer section at the local supermarket, man. But and especially in Michigan, because deer in Michigan, like I said, they're like cows. If you deer hunting in Michigan, put on your pajamas, get a big mug of coffee, and on your way out to get the paper in the morning, smack one on top of the head with your coffee mug. I mean, they're everywhere. So I don't really understand the idea that it's sport, but
Sean has seen deer. I saw deer. I was driving back from the Star Trek tour in Ticonderoga, and I saw a deer by the side of the road. That is the only wildlife other than a squirrel and a chipmunk that I have seen. But and we also have geese landing in the lake on their way south. It was like, and we're not going near the geese.
Yeah, you stay away from them. I take a lot of pictures. I saw Michigan 2 weeks ago. It's the first.
Wow.
It is the first wolverine that I've seen in Michigan in probably 45 years. When I crossed the road from it, I was on a remote road. I had been out shooting pictures of sandhill cranes, and I was on my way back again from some wildlife sanctuary out in the middle of nowhere. And I had done what I never do, which I had flattened the batteries, and so I actually put the gear away, because normally I travel with at least one camera sitting on the seat next to me, and I put the cameras away, and I literally was driving down the road, and a wolverine, and there's no way to mistake a wolverine. A wolverine doesn't look like anything else, and so crossed the road right in front of me. Took one stop in the middle of the road and took this long, insolent look at the front of the car, and then went into the trees and didn't have a camera. All the cameras were in the back of the Mini. All of them were turned off, and I never got a shot of it. It's probably the only wolverine that I've seen outside of a zoo in 45 years. So,
yeah.
Probably Wisconsin.
Well, we have taken appropriate defensive measures around here. We have put up. We don't get a lot of traffic down the road in front of the house, but some people speed, so we put up some orange cones and some slow down signs. And next, we'll probably put up some of those little caltrops that push holes in their tires. So I don't know, but. Eventually, some of the people in this neighborhood are going to learn that Sean has a passion for excellence and won't put up with crap, which makes him a very interesting person to live with. But
because you have such a high tolerance for crap. I mean, come on, man. the only person that's tolerant of crap than me is you, probably. Probably why I like it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I am his biggest complaint.
Yes. Okay.
Because I communicate in a different language than he uses.
Oh man. Well, what else is going on? It's been a hell of a week. I've been fairly isolated. Like I said, I'm in rural Michigan. I use a Verizon jetpack for through the 5G network when I'm traveling, and I burned through 150 gig. Most of that I think was picture uploads, because I was doing a lot of photography, and so I think I burned that up. But man, it's been a hell of a lot going on this month. That's for damn sure. So,
well, George Santos, you
had to go to Santos right out of the box. I mean, right out of the goddamn box, Bob. You had to go to Santos. I mean, talk about low-hanging fruit. And
come on, they got him sitting next to Lorena Bobert. Every time he gets a funny look on his face, I wonder where her hands are.
He says if Congress expels him, he'll wear it like a badge of honor. I don't think that man truly understands the word integrity or honesty.
Doesn't have any of it. The fact, shame. Every time I see the look on his, he doesn't have any shame. He doesn't have any of that stuff, and which is, we're describing 50% of the Republican Party. or better. And but I mean, that guy, he's got no self-awareness. He's got no shame. He's got no integrity. And I think, and every time I see his face, he's got that look of like, I can't believe I'm here. Ah, and I mean, this guy bullshitted his way. What were the other choices? I'm not saying that you had to. Wow, I don't know what the hell I just pulled off my counter, but the printer. That'd be another printer I destroyed, label printer. But the thing about Santos is that guy. What were the other choices? What were the other choices? And this is a question that I ask every time I see a Republican election lately. Like Lauren Boebert. What were the other choices? And apparently there weren't any. And that's the thing that I just find amazing. I mean, again, I look at someone, and this takes you just upscale this right till we get to the top of the Republican Party, Donald Trump. Seriously, man. What are the other choices? See what the other choices are, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I get it. Because the other choices are, my governor, Caligula, and well, Jesus Christ, I mean, what are the choices here? Nikki Haley? I mean, come on. I don't know if she's ever seen brown people that she hasn't wanted to bomb, which is fucking amazing given her back. Again, you look at this and think, my God, what the hell happened to these people? Because there are no good choices in the Republican Party.
Howard Dean, when he was head of the DNC, wanted to realize that there are seats that Republicans are winning because there's no Democratic candidate. He wanted to challenge every single Republican congressman, put someone running against them, so the party would have to spend money defending those seats. And he was shut down or he was stopped. It's one of the reasons he quit. He had a game plan that would have worked very well at hurting the Republicans' attempts to take over the government. And man, if I had won that $1 billion in the lotto last month, that's where I would have put the money, is challenging every damn Republican. Because, I mean, you used to think Louis Gohmert was the dumbest man in Congress. It's like, man, he's not even on the list anymore.
Yeah, it's amazing. And every time I think, I live in Matt Gaetz district. For those of you that are tuning in and don't know, I live in Matt Gaetz district, Florida District 1 in the Panhandle of Florida. And you would think, looking at that guy, he's never here.
He looks like Beavis and Bud. I'm not sure which.
Well, I got a buddy of mine. Who constantly talks about that entire clan of big head, little tiny features, and we laugh about that. And that's what he looks like. He looks like a cartoon with a big bowling ball that they've drawn little face on. But it's the thing about the guys. He's never here. He's not done a goddamn thing for this district. Nothing. Literally nothing. Anything that's benefited this district has been done in spite of him. The Biden Build Back Better plan, for example. And he doesn't even take credit for it. He doesn't even hey, look at all this money I got for the district, even though he didn't get it. He badmouths the money. Everything that benefits this district, he badmouths. He's not here for. I can't remember the last time this guy was actually in the district. And I'm not really complaining about that. The further he stays from here, probably the better off we are. But the guy's constantly, I don't know why he's not the representative of Colorado or wherever the hell Marjorie Taylor Greene is from, because that's in a skiff broadcasting classified information over his phone. And I got to tell you, somebody who spent most of my adult life in skiffs, wow, that just gives me the goddamn, I can't tell you how in fucking prison I would be for the rest of my life for pulling a stunt like that. But anyway, yeah, and sorry for the language, but well, I'm not that sorry. But anyway, what's amazing to me is this clown. This is like he said, what were your other choices? I'm not saying that you had to vote for Hillary Clinton, okay? But for the love of God, this is the best you can do for this district? What, Mike? And I talk to people, and their whole answer is, well,
Jim, they're not there. They're not there to serve their district. They're not there to serve. They're serve the Republican ideology by providing the votes in Congress for what the Republicans want to do. They are not interested in governing. They're not interested in serving the district. They're not interested in the people. They're interested in their advantage, in their ideological
I said,
advantage.
and I talk to people here and I say, look, man, what has this guy done for you? And their answer is, we don't care if he does anything. He makes you mad. How is that a way to run your country? Listen, I mean, talk about cutting off your nose to spite your face. Yeah, he makes me mad, but he's not doing shit for you either. And I laugh because somebody's posted in the comments here, District 1, you don't understand this place. Yeah, someone like me is not only not the Democratic Party wouldn't support me, and I'm not a Democrat, but I'm not a Republican either. But you really don't understand this place. First of all, I have entirely the wrong accent to get elected in the Florida Panhandle. I can tell you that right now. And, you don't stand a chance. You really don't stand a chance. These people again, Matt Gaetz is a perfect example. We know that he's terrible, but he makes you mad, and that's all that matters. And we own the libs. Ha 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 ha. There's no reasoning with that.
You didn't own the libs. You not even annoying the libs. It's just we shake our heads and wonder, is like, what is wrong with you people?
But again,
like, you're not owning anybody, you idiots. You want to own someone, you have to go down to the slave market and buy them. And we made that illegal in 1865.
But again, this is the last sundown town in America here. I mean, I live right down the road from the last lynching, the last sundown town. And people are proud of this shit, you know, and it's crazy. And again, you only have to be here after a hurricane where, some kind of Cat 3 hurricane that comes through here and blows everything down. And the first thing that's rebuilt are these giant mega churches. There's tons of money for that. And 10 years later, the schools are still covered in tarps and kids are still going to school in trailers out back. And because that's where the money goes. And, you know, if you look right now, this Moms for Liberty, this bunch of fascist goofballs that are in schools, the biggest casualty right here in my town where I live, where they're down suing the school. They're trying to have the school. They reported the school librarian for checking out a book to a student, a high school student, that they claim is pornography. Now, this is a book that was approved by it's obviously not pornography, but it mentions gay people or something. And so they're suing this. They want this librarian literally thrown in prison under Ron DeSantis, don't say gay, anti-woke laws, and they just might get their way because I live in a district that has a constitutional sheriff who literally got on television and told people, if you see black people in your backyard, just shoot them and save us the trouble of having to come to your house. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, look it up. Seriously. And I live in a district where the local councilman got elected by standing on the porch of his trailer with an AR-15, talking about how he was going to protect the people of this district from Black Lives Matter. And they elected him overwhelmingly. And now his wife's on a goddamn council for the same thing. And so it makes me laugh when people say, you know, you should run for office in Florida District 1. Sure. You talk about a waste of time. And I hate to sound like that. That goes also, I would make a horrible politician. I might make a damn good advisor, but to be a decent representative of the people, you have to be able to, what did you say before we went online, David, about your son? He doesn't people well. Well, neither do I. I don't people well. And so, and that's not a trait that you want in a politician. That's you want someone that is able to people well. I'm not that guy, but I would make a damn.
Well, see, there's the thing that is that when you have to meet a lot of people, you develop the people performance, and where basically you just have to train yourself to just fall in love with everybody, and it becomes. And part of it is phony because part of it, you're tired at the end of it and you walk away saying, if I have to meet one more person, I'm going to throw up. And at the same time, you walk away energized because you have gotten all of this emotional energy from people. But then there's the one who shows up to tell you what a jerk you are. And you can have 1,000 people tell you you're wonderful, and you walk away remembering what the jerk
You're
said.
describing every science fiction convention you and I have been to.
Pushing the anger button works a lot better than pushing the love button, because it only takes one person to piss you off.
Right.
It takes two people to make love, but it only takes one person to start a fight. And that gives and there are people who realize, oh, I have the power to start a fight. I have power. But they don't have the power to create love, because that takes two people, and some of them are really unlovable.
Right, and you're describing it, and that's a perfect description.
To start a fight, where they go.
That's a perfect description of members of Congress whose only skill seems to be enraging people. They've produced no legislation. They've produced no. They have absolutely no desire to leave the country in when they achieved office. They don't legislate. They don't work to make the world a better place. They don't work across the aisle. Their only function seems to be rage, enraging people. It's a reality TV, and where the entire purpose of reality TV is to stir conflict for clicks and likes. And is my screen flashing? I don't know. I got a light in here that's goofy. I'll have to fix it before the next time. So please ignore that.
That's okay. I got the fan overhead. It has a light on it, which if I turn it on, I get this flicker, which is enough to put me into a seizure.
So, you've been in my office. I've got my artwork's on the wall, my photography's on the wall behind me here, and so there's can lights around the top that shine down on the photography, and one of them's a little dodgy at the moment, but that would require the ladder and climb up there and do something about it, and so obviously that's not happening today. I don't think I should be on a ladder. I'm having trouble sitting in a chair after 14 hours on the road yesterday. What's that, Bob? What were you saying?
Oh my God! If I drive too long, I get out of the car and it takes me 15 minutes vibrating, and then I have to get back in the car and go back and get back on the trip.
Right.
So when we planned our trip to drive, Sean said, "Well, we could do it in 3 days," and our guy who's driving the truck said, and so, but we ended up doing 4.5 days, and
that's
so
a lot more reasonable.
It was we just didn't want to tire out our buddy who was driving a truck for us, but it was stressful. By the end of the fourth day, all of us were showing signs of stress. So, and
we did,
and even though I had faced it, so we were not driving more than 10 hours a day.
Yeah. But military, we always, for 20 years, my wife and I and family, we never had a duty station on the same side of the goddamn continent. So every trip was 4,000 miles diagonally across the damn continent, or further if we were driving. We drove from Florida to Alaska. Actually, the first time we did it, we drove from Maine to Alaska, but we did it. I had to stop in Washington, D.C., and Florida and Texas on the way. So we literally had to drive all the way down the East Coast, all the states on 10, all the way to San Diego, and then all the way to Alaska. That was a long trip. That took us 43 days. And
whoa.
Yeah.
Alaska's the only state I haven't been to, and I hope to get there sometime in the next couple of years. But if nothing else, I'll fly to the West Coast and take one of those cruises to Alaska.
That's the way to go.
So,
Look at
Alaska. I've reached a point where stopping at a Taco Bell on the drive is not my idea of a fun trip anymore. When as a kid, oh boy, let's pull out and let's taco.
Yeah. We need better fast food longer. I was just thinking the other day, I got this idea for like a franchise of, of healthy wraps or something. My God, I can't look at fast food. I just, the thought of it makes me, I usually bring a cooler full of bananas and apples.
Popeyes. We don't have Popeyes here in Vermont, but man, when I'm driving cross country, I only stop at places that have a Popeyes franchise. Here's the travel.
I can't. Yeah, I can't. I usually bring. Yeah, I usually stop at a grocery store in the morning and pick up apples and bananas and.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah.
Or something. Yeah, I can't look at a fast food burger anymore. Oh no,
it's like I have to be, if my blood sugar's crashing, then I look for a Burger King. But I was like, there is the only thing at McDonald's that actually is well done is their fries. Their fries are great, but everything else,
Yeah. Hey, somebody said cross country trip of 43 days sounds like a wondrous adventure. It was. We had a great time. My son was very small. I think he was 4 at that time, and for him, every day was eyes staring out the window as we crossed West Texas or Arizona or the British Columbia. We drove the Alcan, the Alaska in winter, which is, I always recommend people do it. You need to be well prepared, but we drove the Alaskan Canadian. I think we stopped in Tok, which is the last stop before you get to Fairbanks or to Anchorage, depending on which way you're going, because that's where the road splits. And it was 48 below zero that night. And we left the truck running all night to keep the engine and keep the fluids and stuff. But there were people that came out in the morning and their tires were frozen flat on one side, and the transmission fluid was like amber. It had frozen solid, and they literally had to drag those vehicles into a building and put bulldog heaters, the salamander heaters on them to warm them up enough. But we were lucky. But
we have a heated garage. Our garage is heated. It's big enough for both the cars, and we have not had below zero temperatures. And I said, and Sean dug a fire pit, which we have not used a lot, but has been a lot of fun. Yeah. But I have told Sean the night that those flames freeze, I'm out of here.
That's when you're done. That's it. I'll tell you what, man, Vermont. I mean, Vermont in the winter, because I lived in New England. I lived in northern Maine, but Vermont in the winter, man, that's
we've heard.
No tourists, and maple syrup and pancakes every day. It's like every day you look out your window and it's like a postcard. Vermont.
I'm still not allowed to use the kitchen. Sean is at that point still where everything has to be kept spotless, and so I can make myself a sandwich as long as I sterilize the kitchen afterwards. But
right.
Even though I bought a waffle iron, Bob asked me, what did we have to buy new? Well, we left all the dishes and pots and pans behind because they were old. And we said, we'll treat ourselves to a new kitchen. So we bought new silverware, new plates, new pots and pans, new knives, a new waffle iron. At some point, I'll buy a new Instapot. But partly because there was no room in the truck for it, and partly because shipping, they charge you by weight.
Yeah.
So we just said, let's just replace the kitchen because the house looks so good. We want to put crap in the house. Everything has to be new.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's, and it is, we moved so much as a military family. And so we moved every 2 or 3 years, and we got pretty good at slimming things down. Of course, we've been here for a while now. Like I said, David has said, for those who don't know, David and I are good friends, and David has spent time here in my house. And I think my wife likes him more than she likes me, and which is not saying much because, but David's a very likable person and I am not. But
I wouldn't put it that way.
We've acquired stuff. Yeah, I mean, but we moved from Alaska to here. I think it cost us an incredible amount of money to ship, and we had thinned down, but our house in Alaska this is a pretty big place, but our house in Alaska was twice the size of this. And then half of the 70-foot semi truck was filled with my wife's doll collection. I am not exaggerating. It might've been 3/4.
Yeah. Your wife she's got an amazing collection. It's like, when I'm looking at the wall of beautiful items, and it's like, I'm thinking, and you brought all this from Alaska? So what did you do? Rent a train?
We filled a 70-foot tractor trailer rig from one end to the other, and that was the stuff that we kept. I mean, I got rid of all kind of things.
I have to go back to LA and empty 2 storage lockers and ship the stuff out here. Half of it is movies and CDs that we absolutely cherish, and the other half is my files and books and things that I sell at conventions.
Yeah.
So I'll probably I'll wait until it is really cold here in Vermont and take the train.
Yeah, and that can be a fun adventure. We've done that, taking the train part across. It's expensive, but it's it can be a lot of fun, and it's enjoyable.
Well, it's safer than flying in cold weather. I mean,
And
look what happened to
somebody else is doing the
astronauts.
driving, and you're looking out the window, and I mean,
I can read a book.
it's not
I
really
can write a
downside
book.
to it. Yeah, not really a downside to it. So, but you're going to make us talk about current events, are you, Bob, or can we just keep jabbering about our grandchildren and
Well,
dinner?
I think that people like both. I can look at the numbers and say that people aren't leaving because you're talking about life. Because
Oh.
guess what?
That makes me
goes
wonder
on
what the
in
hell.
Washington-
What the hell's the matter with them then? Yeah, it's been a month. I mean, the elephant in the room, of course, is the conflict in the Middle East. And I was just looking this morning, actually right before this, I was looking at the news where it looks like 3 Palestinian students were shot last night, and they're still getting the details on that. And again, I had to ask, and I said this on I don't know, whatever the hell it is that I'm on, whatever social media platform, whatever one of the 15 ones I'm on, Threads, I guess. Yeah, Burlington, Vermont. Yeah, Burlington, Vermont. 3 Palestinian students were shot in Burlington last night. I guess
Oh,
they
crap.
survived. No suspect is in custody. But again, how does either rage against Jewish people in America or against Islamic people in America, how does that further your cause or your ideology in the Middle East? How does Americans attacking Americans in America further your, how does that, I can't wrap my head around that,
Weren't you here during 9/11?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. Well, I have to admit that after 9/11, I was in the Middle East, and and so I was insulated from a lot of the things that happened here in the United States while that was going on, and because in those days, unlike now, you didn't have a lot of connectivity back then, so you saw whatever news the military thought you should see, and so you didn't see a lot of that stuff. And it was only after I got back to the United States a year later that I saw. Oh, like where they what was it? The Dixie Chicks, they canceled them because they said something. It turns out they were right, but hey, and we renamed French toast to Freedom Toast, even though it turns out, hey, guess what? The French were right. Hey, Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with it. But the violence against people in the United States, I live in a state. I live in the state of Florida, for those of you who don't know. And my governor is Ron DeSantis, who wants to, if elected president, deport all Islamic students in our universities. Now, these are the same people. This is the same ideology, the same political party that says, why can't these people recognize? Why would they move here? Why don't they integrate into our society? I'm like, they're in the fucking colleges. What do you think they're trying to do? And your idea is, let's throw them out. How does that work? How are you? How the hell are you making friends and allies by throwing people out who are?
Can you wait till the conference is over?
Well, I tell you, Jim, I was watching and listening
very
to.
Loud. Oh. Yeah, your mic is.
I will tell you. Let me say this. It puzzles me that we talk about liberty and justice for all, and then turn loose hate mongers, and turn into hate mongers. Right. It's just I don't understand it. Well, how can we talk about freedom and justice and then turn into monsters?
Well, and the thing, and that's exactly it, and the thing that kills me here is, if you watch the debate, the Republican debate, I really despise that word because it's just politicians shouting crap at the microphone, and they're not answering questions. And so it's not a debate. But if you watch the Democrat or the Republican primary debate without the leading Republican candidate for office, and the thing was, every time a question was that, when they asked, how do you feel about, anti-Semitism in America? And of course, blah, 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 and terrible, yada, yada, yada. And then the next question was, how do you feel about Islamophobia in the United States? And they continued to answer a question about Israel and didn't say anything about Islamophobia. And not a single one of those 5 candidates said anything. And every single one of them, as you went through that debate, all their answers were bomb them, bomb somebody. We got to bomb somebody. We got to bomb Iran. All of them were in favor of bombing Iran. These are the same people that talked about, God, Donald Trump got us out of the war. Well, okay, but then immediately the next question or the next statement out of their mouth is, we need to start a war with Iran. I got news for you, man. If you think that Afghanistan and Iraq that went on for 20 years was a horrible conflict, go ahead and bomb Iran and see where the hell it gets you. Because people don't understand the geopolitics of this. And Americans are just stunningly ignorant most of the time, especially when it comes to things like foreign countries. I bet 90% of the people that were applauding bomb Iran have no idea where the hell Iran is. And I got news for you. It sits right smack on top of the Straits of Hormuz. You think gas prices are high now? Go ahead and bomb Iran and see where the hell that gets you. Because there won't be a goddamn oil tanker coming through ever. And the thing is that what I gathered from that, though, that entire debate for 2 hours that thing went on, where these 5 people talked about bombing this country and bombing that country and killing these people and genocide in that group, nowhere in there did anybody have any alternate ideas. As a matter of fact, Vivek Ramaswamy said diplomacy. I'm sorry, Tim Scott said, not Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't even know what the hell that crazy bastard said. Tim Scott said that, and I quote, diplomacy is a weakness. This is literally the state of America, where we're not even going to consider any alternative to using our massive military to bomb the shit out of people. Like, we're going to bomb our way to fucking peace, right? After 20 years of war, better. But we don't. And it's in great, it's
in the entire history of the United States, we've only been at peace for 13 years. We've been at war the rest of the time.
Right. Yeah, and
because war is profitable. War is profitable to somebody.
Bob, can you top me off? I saw you pour coffee. Go ahead and top me off, will you? That's right.
Hey, you guys turned me on to this.
That's
but
right.
What Dave said makes great sense. War is profitable. Every bomb that's dropped, every shell that's fired, every missile that's blown up is one that you're going to have to go to some company and have it replaced.
Well, and that's the thing, that's the amazing part. And it's exactly as David said, a minute ago. We don't even consider any alternative anymore. And that's the thing. If you spend, and literally the other part of that debate was, our military's weak. Our military's depleted. It's a Donald Trump statement. Our military, we can't win a war. I'm like, seriously, Ramaswamy said we need to be able to fight on 3 continents simultaneously. I'm like, son of a bitch, man. Tell me, we already spend more than half our budget, our discretionary budget, on the military. If these F-35s and F-22s and the new B-21 bomber that costs, holy shit, how much that goddamn airplane. It's unbelievable how much that single aircraft costs. And you want to build new aircraft carriers, and you want to build new ships. And your whole bit.
Yeah, the B-2 bomber is a beautiful airplane that I would rather have a dozen warthogs than one of those B-2 bombers. You can't fly them in wet weather,
The B-2 is an amazing aircraft, but the B-2 is now outdated. We're building the B-21 now, which is a full order of magnitude militarily beyond the B-2. And the price tag is a full order of magnitude and then some beyond. It's unbelievable how much these goddamn weapons cost.
We're better off with the Warthog. The Warthog is the most versatile plane. You can use it anywhere, use it for everything. It puts the fear of God in anyone you're going up against, and you don't have to spend $5 billion a pop.
Right. Well, the thing is, again, these are questions that I ask people. I said, in 20 years, we were at war for 20 years. In Iraq and Afghanistan, and at no time did enemy air power play into this equation in any fashion. Our people were killed every day by shitheads with improvised explosive devices and snipers. But we spent all of our money building gigantic tank-like MRAPs, which arguably was because they're resistant to IEDs and mining and that sort of thing. But we spent the vast majority of our money on new aircraft carriers and the F-35 and the F-22 because we had to maintain air superiority. And we were not fighting the Afghans in the air. And again, don't get me wrong. People read that and then I start getting shitty email about, you don't understand. I understand just fine. But again, we concentrate on the things in the last war and not the things that are killing our people right now. And the things that have killed our people for 20 years are shitheads with pointy sticks and not enemy air power. Now, I'm not saying that enemy air power is not a thing that we have to think about, but I don't know that we need another $1 trillion fighter jet. And again, these are things, things for the eggheads to talk about.
H.G. Wells, let me give you this. H.G. Wells' most memorable novel is War of the Worlds.
Right.
And almost everybody misses the point.
They do.
Because they think, oh, look how smart human beings are. Look how great Earth is. But the real point is he was writing about anti-colonialism.
Right, about war and anti-colonialism.
Somebody around in your territory with machines you didn't understand and couldn't fight.
Yeah.
And that was what he was writing about in English imperial colonialism.
Right.
And nobody got it. Very few people understood what he was doing.
Well, yeah, again,
and
like you said, what they see are the Morlocks and the Eloi and or however the hell you pronounce it, and and the ruined Earth and that sort of thing. And what they missed was the allegory, what the story was really about. But of course, that's 90% of science fiction, I think. Sometimes they missed the actual message.
Speaking as someone who has some experience with fiction, the book I write is not necessarily the book you read.
That's right.
And it turns out that it's like there are two books. There's the one I write and there's the one you read. And what you read gets filtered through your experience, and you take out what you understand, what you see. And my best example is a story called Dancer in the Dark. And I knew what I was writing, what allegory I was writing about. But listening to the reviewers who were saying, no, he was writing about this, he was writing about that, this is the political allegory, this is this, it's like, yeah, it's like, if that's what if that's how you saw it, that's true for you.
Right.
I forget the exact phrasing. Somebody said, I read your book and up, and it meant this to me. And the right answer is yes, if that's what you got out of it, yes. Yeah.
That's funny. I saw the comments here. Yeah, you're right. David was talking about War of the Worlds, and I read Time Machine for some reason. Because Wells had very specific messages in both of those novels, and those things are often lost in the science fiction. They see the time machine or the spaceships or the aliens or the whatever, and miss the actual story. And that's very common in science fiction. In fact, that's one of the reasons I think that we have gone to the point where we just eliminated the message and we just stick with the flashy shit that sells movies. And here we are, the Marvel universe, and the stories that have messages don't do very well in the theaters. I saw the Creator here last month before I had to go up north, and the Creator kind of falls short for me. At the end of it is very Roland Emmerich, but the actual message of the movie is amazing, and the visuals are just stunning. I have great hope for Rebel Moon, which is coming out last month on Netflix, which I'm very much looking forward to. But so many of the movies and sci-fi stories that I see nowadays, not some of the stories, because writers are just putting the hell of work in nowadays, but a lot of that gets distilled down for Hollywood of giant special effects. What they got from the original Star Wars movie was that explosions and special effects on movies and messages don't. And I don't know that that's a true story, but that's how Hollywood interpreted it. And you see that a lot now. And you very much.
Well, let me tell you about this about Hollywood. Hollywood is filled with people. Hollywood is filled with people who know better than you.
Right. Well, and I
No
said,
matter what you
and I
do,
think
I was there.
you're
This is what happened. Yes, we
yeah.
know better.
Yeah, and I think yeah, because 100 people in a room is their test audience know better than you, but I think this recent strike, and that sounded very much like a grandchild noise in the background there. I'm familiar with that, but the you
It's
see
when
it
they're
very much.
not making noise, you start worrying.
That's right. But you see that very much in the recent writer strike with the studios that wanted to go to AI, and again, we just remove the writers and the creators and the actors from the process and go just straight to the explosions and the boobs and distill it down to its pure essence, and people will buy it. The problem with that is you're seeing that sort of thing in the rest of the world. I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but this month the Pentagon's talking about removing human beings from the decision-making loop for killing human beings. We're talking about adding AI to our drones, and when I say adding AI, well, it's already there. We're talking about enabling it and allowing machines to make the decisions of whether or not to terminate human lives. And I use the word terminate on purpose because we're there. And the Arnold Schwarzenegger robot from the future isn't half as terrifying as a predator at 10,000 feet, 10 miles away that you never see coming. And it's a very small step for us to go from predator automated decision making, where predator drones make life and death decisions. It's a very small step from there to automated tanks, which was the old, for God's sake, I can't think of what I'm talking about. Bolo series where tanks became sentient and made decisions whether to kill people or go to war or do those sort of thing. And you're seeing robots for that matter. In fact, the last couple of stories that I sold to Bob Brown there was about a robot from a war. He was a logistics guy, but again, we're there. We're seeing it now, and it's less terrifying. Arnold Schwarzenegger as a robot from the future killing people is a hell of a lot less terrifying than what's actually happening. And these are all reflections of each other. Where Hollywood wants to remove the human being from the loop, to the military removing the human decision maker and the creator from the loop. And I think that's what the movie, The Creator, was about, though I think it maybe fell a little short of the mark there again, but there's only so much you could pack into 90 minutes of movie. But I still enjoyed the hell out of it. I watched it 3 times now, and I think I love every minute of it. I'm not real gung-ho on the ending, but yeah, it is. These things are all reflection of our society and where we're going. The problem is that our world is so complicated now that it's easy to get wrapped up in the moment and the individual pieces and not see the larger picture. And when we're talking about things like AI and decision, I don't know that automated drones that decide whether to kill human life will take more human life than an AI sitting in an insurance company deciding which claim to fill and which ones to deny. And
you've hit on something that goes, is that too many people are using the computer as the final authority.
That's right.
And it's not. It's a tool to give you information on which you can make a judgment. And it used to be when you would go to a local business, and I had this happen. We had this absolute great little diner. And I would go in one day, I forgot my wallet. They said, no problem, you'll pay us tomorrow. I went on a trip, I came back, they said, your son has been eating breakfast here for a week. Oh, I didn't know that. How much do I owe you? So, because there was the personal relationship, the computer would have said declined.
Right.
Because the computer doesn't have a personal relationship. And too many people are going to the computer and saying, well, the computer says no. So, for instance, we wanted to get a new insurance policy for when we moved. And we went to Liberty Insurance, which was recommended by our real estate agent. And we filled out, and it looked good. And the computer said, well, based on this and that and the other thing, I can't give you insurance. Right. So I called an insurance agent I knew, and she said, I will have insurance for you by tonight. And she did.
Right.
Because she had the human relationship with us.
Right.
So, and the funny thing is, is that for weeks afterward, we were getting inquiries from Liberty Insurance. Can we write a policy for you?
Right.
And I finally got on the phone to them and said, your computer won't allow it. So go yourselves. And
Right.
it's like, and you know, because anybody who knew us personally, our loan officer who got us the loan on our first house that we had to fix up so we could sell it, the loan officer who got us there was a personal relationship where we said, well, what about this and this? And said, I can handle that. Don't worry about it.
Right.
But where we went to anything that had the computer, if the person would say, the computer says no, so I can't do it.
Right.
It's like, well, now we know what the real danger is with AI. There's no human connection because humans know if they can trust each other. Humans know the red flags. Humans know that have the relationship. They have the long-term relationship. So,
Yeah.
and meanwhile, the computers have said, oh, you've been with this company for 30 years. We know we can trust you. So we're going to offer you our new credit card, or we're going to offer you this. At the moment, all of our credit cards are in the safe. We're not using credit cards,
Right.
Which is where I was 5 years ago. Is like, if I didn't have the cash, I wouldn't get it. Then we had to use credit cards for emergencies, and we got ourselves in a hole. Now we're out of the hole again, thank God. And the credit cards are all stored in the safe.
Right.
Because you end up, by the time you're finished paying the credit card fees over a period of a year, you've paid more for whatever it was you bought.
Right. Hey, Ellen asked, what'd she say? Ellen Barnes asked, so does the military leadership think that removing human decisions from the killing will absolve the injustice of war? The answer to that is no. The military doesn't worry about the injustice of war. That's the politicians and your leaders' job. War is always unjust. It's always immoral. It's always unethical. That's the nature of war. And those of us who have to fight it very much know that. And there's no moral high ground in war. We like to pretend that there is, and there's no. War is always unjust. We always want to people that we didn't intend to. We always war's horrible. War should never be the first option. War should never be the second option, the third option. War should be the absolute last option when there are no other options and you've tried everything else. And knowing that when you go to war, horrible injustice will happen. It will happen to both. You can see it right now in Israel. And again, now when I say things, in both sides of this conflict there is immorality, there is unethical actions, there is injustice, and there are acts of heroism and those sorts of things on both sides. And now the next thing that will happen is you guys will all send me a horrible email screaming about both siderism. It's not a both sides thing, but again, as an American from a distance, I can look at this war dispassionately and say, yeah, you see these kind of things on both sides. So the military, to answer your question, Ellen, it doesn't, the process of adding AI to the decision-making loop, it's not about reducing injustice. It's not about morality or immorality. It's about efficiency. It's about putting the decision-making on the pointy end of the stick and killing the target.
It's about removing the human element so that you you get the payoff of not having to engage with people and having to get it's about not having to have your compassion and your empathy be part of the equation. It's about monetizing human behavior, and you can't monetize humanity.
Right, and again for war. When you're looking at war, when you're looking at the people who make these decisions, they're not making these decisions from a position of morality or ethics. Well, again, there are ethics within war, and there's an entire of rules that we are bound by, and those rules sometimes get bent or moved or. And depending on how desperate you can go to war with the highest and moral values, and then when you're pressed against the wall, those things kind of go out the window. But again, what you should gather from my statements is that war is goddamn horrible. It's a horrible thing. We should not. It should the absolute resort when everything else has failed, and not some goddamn glorious spectacle that should be engaged in simply because it's the easiest path, because you have this enormous military. And you can, again, it's no different than the guy who solves every problem with his fists, because that's the only thing that he knows, or because it's easier to punch somebody in the mouth than it is to sit down and listen to them and put up with the things that irritate the piss out of you. Again, this is why I would make a horrible politician. But it's not any different than that mentality of solving every problem with a hammer. When you have a hammer, every problem is a nail, right? And that's this thing. We have this enormous military, this massive, powerful military that can crush any enemy. Whether we win or lose the war, we win every battle. And what I mean by that is there's a difference winning the battle and winning the war. And 20 years of war that left us probably worse off than when we started should be an abject example of that, especially after 20 years of war in places like Vietnam. I mean, if anybody should have known better, it was the people who sent us to war in 2001 and 2003. Those people had for their whole life the example of Vietnam. And yet we didn't learn from it. What the lesson that we learned from it wasn't that those things might not be the answer. What we learned from that is that war is very profitable for the people that are in charge, and that even if we spend 20 years at war and we lose 8,000 Americans, or in Vietnam, 58,000 Americans, and God knows how many people on the other side, somebody's going to get very, very rich. And that's true today. And again, so when you see people in a Republican debate or a Democratic debate, when you see politicians arguing for war, and that's exactly what you've been seeing since the Hamas attack on Israel, you've been seeing a lot of politicians, many of them on one side of the aisle as well, talking about how we need to go and blow up another country. You have to ask yourself what the real motivation is, because for some folks that, and they may not even be the ones that are originating that idea, because a politician, especially in the United States of America, is not an individual. It's not a free agent. A politician in America, especially in Washington, D.C., is a creature of many puppeteers, because that's the only way you can get elected in America. And if you don't believe me on that, all you have to do is look at these reports on both sides of Democrats and Republicans, of the paper reporting about who out fundraised who's got more money this month than that other guy. And we mark that as some sort of measure of value in our league. Got more money this month than this other guy. Like that's a measure of how much a better person they are. And again, when money is the driving factor of how you get somebody into office, then the question is, who's providing the money? And so you see many politicians, and you see it all the time. And a perfect example right now is Jenna Ellis, Trump's former lawyer, who now suddenly has turned on him because she's been found guilty and threatened with prison, and he's no longer paying her. And now suddenly she's anti-Trump. And this is Joe Scarborough is another example. People forget that Joe Scarborough is a horrible goddamn human being. He was Matt Gaetz's predecessor in Florida District 1. He was one of Newt Gingrich's new Federalists. He is directly responsible for the Tea Party and for the MAGAs and the bullshit that you see now. But suddenly he's our pal because he hates Trump and he's got a TV show. And people have no idea. And when you mention, they're like, I didn't know that Joe Scarborough was a former congressman. No shit. He was one of Newt Gingrich's new Federalists. He's a horrible human being. But Trump tried to screw his wife, and then when she turned him down, suddenly suddenly he was bad mouthing her on national television. Now suddenly Joe Scarborough is anti-MAGA. And again, you have to look at where the money's coming from, because a lot of these people have no moral or ethical stand of their own. Their morals and ethic, they would. It's just like Jen Ellis. A year ago she was as MAGA as anybody, and today she's one of Trump's worst enemies. The threat of prison or the promise of a check determines the moral high ground for these people. And there's far too many folks in America that forget that. We again, I keep circling back to the Israel-Hamas conflict, but America couldn't wait to queue up on pick a side and start hurting other people in America. You saw this guy, the former, the press, the press, former Obama administration official that was harassing this, again, that makes no sense. Why would you be picking on some goddamn guy from Egypt who moved to the United States 20 years ago and sells hot dogs on the streets in one of America's cities? This guy didn't hurt it. He's the guy that you want. This guy's as American as all the rest of us. And yet we're out on the street yelling at each other because that's what Americans do. It's reality TV. You have to pick a sports team. You have to pick a favorite character on the island, and you have to hate everybody else. And half these people have no idea. They can't separate Israel from the Jewish faith, and they can't separate Hamas from the Islamic faith. And again, in their mind, it's very simple. It's binary. It's a 1 or a 0. It's black or white. If you're not, you got to be for that side. You got to be for this side. And again, we see this in our politics. You're either a Republican or you're a Democrat. That's all there is. And Americans can't seem to wrap their head around the fact that the world is more complicated than that. And war and conflict and oppression and history are vastly, vastly more complicated than just a 1 or a 0 or who you're going to vote off the island this week. For a very long time, so now it's David's turn. Plus, we're out of time.
Well, I had a question for you, Jim and David.
I'm here.
The Tommy Tuberville.
Oh, God.
That's okay.
You went from George Santos to
that.
You went from Santos to Tube Steak. God damn it, Bob. What about it?
Well, it's the Southern edition. No, you remember when Mitch McConnell wouldn't refuse to fill a Supreme Court vacancy because he wanted to wait until the election?
Right.
Okay. And change the country dramatically as a result of that.
Yep.
Okay. Now, we got an election coming up, and anybody here remembers that, you can tell me if I'm wrong, Jim, that the military didn't go along with what Trump wanted done. Basically, the imposition of martial law, Insurrection Act, etc. Okay? So, what if the scenario is that Tommy Tuberville is trying to pull the same stunt that Mitch McConnell did that says, well, I'm going to deny leadership positions to be filled on the outside chance that Trump wins the election, then he can fill them with who he wants and they will do what he wants.
Well,
is there any value to that thought?
Again, we live in a world of complexity. I would rule it out, but I don't. On the other hand, I don't. You had as an intelligence officer, a former intelligence officer, long former now. I would say to you that Occam's razor is usually a pretty good rule of thumb, and that is that the simplest solution is usually the right one. And I think you're attributing more complexity to Tube Steak than Tommy Tuberville than he probably deserves. He's not that subtle of a guy. And Mitch, you have to understand here, Tommy Tuberville is not Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is a cagey, experienced Washington insider. He's an operator. He knows where all the bodies are buried. He's the guy that committed murder and got away with it. And so McConnell he's a long range planner, though I think he's missing some missing some brain cells now. Tommy Tuberville is a guy that spent his life blowing up footballs. And I'm not running down sports, so don't send me goddamn email. But the thing about it is that Tuberville is playing to the people who elected him. And that, again, you have to live here to understand the Deep South. But if there is one goddamn thing that is the bugaboo of the Deep South, it's abortion. And it is, they'd elect Matt Gaetz, okay? Over and over, even though he's done nothing for them, because abortion. These people know how Trump is, but Donald Trump gave them the Supreme Court, and Donald Trump's Supreme Court struck down Roe versus Wade, and that has been the holy grail for 30 goddamn years. That's what these people were after. And so I don't think that I think that this narrative that Tuberville is holding up nominations so that Donald Trump can fill them later, I think that's a convenient story. And if that's a side effect that happens, I think they'll happily take for it, just the way Mitch. But in reality, I think Tuberville isn't that subtle, and I think that what he's telling you is exactly who he is. He's holding up these nominations over the bullshit because he can. That's the one piece of power that he has because of the way the Senate rules work. It allows him to impose his will on the Senate and on the nation.
Let me offer a thought here. If worse comes to worse, and Trump gets into office again. Hi, do you want to come here? Come here.
I want mommy.
Well, you're gonna have to wait.
Grandchild down.
If Trump gets into
I want mommy.
okay, I hear you. If Trump gets back into office and tries to, and Tuberville has been successful in holding off all those appointments, the Democrats can do the same thing. The Democratic senator can put a hold on all of Trump's appointment.
Yep.
It would be
Absolutely.
a terrible thing for a Democrat to have to do, but
It's horrible precedent.
the precedent is there. So well, you did it to us, we'll do it to you. And until you're
Right.
willing to cooperate in running the government, we're going to be at a standstill.
Yeah, it's
So
a
in the
horrible
background, you
precedent.
can hear
Yeah, it's government by extortion. And again, you've heard me say this, those that follow me, you've heard me say this over and over again. Someday I'm going to have to put it on a t-shirt. But when you elect people who hate and fear government to run your government, you get a government of hate and fear. And that's exactly what's happened to us here. Electing people who have no interest in running government. And the other side of it is, I talk to people here who say, good, I hate government. God damn it. Well, listen, man, 8 billion people can't live together on this planet without some kind of government. That's just how it works. And I don't give a shit which libertarian conservative ideal you hold or which hippie commune, all men are brothers, kumbaya, liberal idea you hold. The reality of the matter is that you have to have some sort of government that is interested in making the world a better place for this many people to live together. And if you don't have that, then people wind up killing each other. And you don't have to look very damn far to see very abject examples of that. And it's true no matter how many times you run the experiment. Eliminate government, see what happens. You get Somalia. You get Bosnia for 10 years.
Right
you get,
out of my mouth. Yeah. If you don't
you
like government, move to Somalia. See how that works for you.
Right. I mean, Somalia is a libertarian dream, man. Very small government. Everybody's armed. And I don't think you want to live there. I've been there. More power to you if you want to go there. But
Somalia is a safe place if you're a pirate.
Yeah.
If you're a pirate.
Well, if you're the warlord of the pirates, it is. If you're just the average pirate, life's kind of on the edge. But the thing is that we have gotten, for some reason, in the last, since about Ronald Reagan, for some reason, we've gotten this idea in America that government is bad. No, bad government is bad. But good government was the whole idea. The Constitution is literally the whole idea behind good government. That's literally the principle that America was founded on. And so again, when you keep electing people that hate your government, well, hate and fear is what you get. And there's no, you can see any example of that, from Lauren Boebert to Marjorie Taylor Greene to Matt Gaetz. These are people that are not interested in government of any kind, let alone good government. The only thing that they're interested in is hate and fear, and because that's what keeps them in power. And you don't have, again, when a government goes in that direction, it doesn't take you very long. It doesn't take you very many examples, and there are numerous examples of this throughout history to see where that leads. And it only leads one place, and that is disaster. And the problem with that is, it's bad enough when it's some small country somewhere that falls apart and a million people commence to killing each other and living in ruins. When it's the United States of America, and again, I'm not trying to put value of one group of people over another, but the reality is that America is central to the world economy, for better or for worse, and technology and politics and all of those things. And if America goes the way of Somalia or the way of Nazi Germany, I'm not sure who comes along and cleans up the mess after it's over, because the only countries powerful enough to do that are China, Russia, and hopefully, I mean, you see global disaster and the scope of the collapse of the Roman Empire, and again, we're talking about very large things, very complicated things in very simple terms, and so don't send me email, please. But and you will anyway. But the thing is that we stand on the cusp of absolute disaster, and there are folks that gleefully keep throwing gasoline on the fire because they think that that's what they want. They watch too many Mad Max movies or something, and they think they're going to be the guy with the mask living in the.
Yeah, if we can't get our way, let's burn it all down. It's like, great.
Right.
Have you studied any history about what happens when you burn it all down?
Right. And again, that's and you see my comments about that when people tell me that online, because I see that constantly, of burn it all down, and I see from the right, and people die in a fire. You can look at a building and say the only way to save this building is to burn it down, build a new one, and which is essentially what we're talking about doing with civilization. Well, that may be true, but the people who live in the building die in a fire, and you're an arsonist. And America was founded on the idea, the Constitution and the founding of America was based on the idea, however imperfect that union was at the beginning, that we could, without everything down. That was the whole point. And somehow that idea was perverted into, we have guns so we can kill everybody if we don't like our government. That wasn't the point at all. There's no way in hell the founding fathers would build a document that says, if you don't like us, you can just kill us and start over again. Okay, that wasn't the idea behind America. Was we could make changes without violent revolution. That was the whole point of the amendment process. That's the whole point of legislation, that we would all separately live together. And again, don't get me wrong, don't write me email, because obviously at the beginning of America, none of those things were true either. We have a significant fraction of the country were enslaved farm equipment, for Christ's sake. And so those people weren't perfect either, but they knew that. They knew they weren't perfect, and they gave us a mechanism for changing our country based on China killing each other. And we haven't been real good at living up to that ideal. And you've heard me say this online many times, perhaps our ancestors had a higher opinion of us than we deserve. But again, you see this.
We have. Yeah. Let me say this: our ancestors did not have an internet. They did not have libraries like we had. They did not have access to information or education that we have. And with all the access to information that we have, and all the access to communication we have, most of the time the chatter has been dominated by misinformation and liars, because it's a lot harder to get an uncomfortable truth out to people when they would rather believe a simple lie. The old story is, the lie gets halfway around the world before the truth gets its shoes on. And
but
that's what
again,
we're dealing with. The internet has
right.
made it possible to misinform large numbers of people all at the same time.
And you're
You
absolutely,
know,
you're absolutely said when looked at things in the 90s about where the internet and the communications age would lead us. These are the things that we missed the ball on, and we should not have, because all technology has both benefit and bane. But what I just said about about government is the same thing can be said about religion. I mean, supposedly 2,000 years ago, there was this hippie dude who wandered around the Dead Sea, hungry, close to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Give up all your worldly goods and follow me. Those sort of things. And 2,000 years later, that message is, screw those people. They're going to hell. I'm saved. And here we are, And again, you have to fight against that tendency all the time. I mean, that's if you follow me online, that's what I do. My dad called it shoveling shit against the tilting at windmills. I'm not really sure where it ends, but I see this with people all the time who say, well, we showed up and voted last time. When does this end? Well, that's the answer. It doesn't. You fight this battle your whole life. You fight in defense of democracy and the republic and a better world every day, every minute, with every breath. It doesn't end. It never ends. It'd be great if it did, but that's the problem. For somebody who comes into office who we think is the guy that's going to change things, and he does, and you think your job is done. It's not. And you go home and you don't show up the next time, and you get this. You get Donald Trump. You get fascism. You have to show up every time. Your job never ends. You have to keep shoveling shit against the tide. You have to keep tilting against the windmills. You have to keep speaking out. Because the minute that you give up and you give into complacency, or you think that you've won, that's when you lose. This battle never ends.
I'm getting a new sign for my protest corner here in town. Just say no to fascism.
Yeah, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. Just say no campaigns, just say no against drugs didn't work. Just say no doesn't work. They used to say way back when, oh, you wouldn't need abortion if you just keep your knees together. It's like, yeah, right.
Right.
It is such a totally, the retreat to simplistic answers does not produce results.
Well, that's not going to solve the big problem, David. But I tell you what, it's all about what we as individuals do to affect our world and talk to our politicians, to influence the people we can influence.
Yes.
And so we've got to all do what we can, or those bastards are going to have us in camps.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree with that. And, the thing is that, again, it's just on time, but we forget again how complicated. You also forget that one size doesn't fit all. And somebody said online, we were having this argument on Threads here the other day about Twitter and speaking of fascism, don't write me about the definition of fascism. I know what it is, but the guy that's running that outfit, you're watching this platform devolve into hate and anti-Semitism and literally self-declared Nazis. I mean, they're like, and you're watching the social media platform disintegrate, and there's this very self-righteous, virtue signaling, loud group on other social media platforms that says you have to disengage completely from that. You can't be there. You can't look at anything. Can't look at any. You have to go away or else. And because it's immoral for you to be part of that platform now that it's going in that direction. And there is certainly something to be said for that. But the reality is that for me at least, is that as someone whose trained and background is what mine is that if you want to know what the enemy is thinking, you got to go listen to what he's saying, and I got to go where he's at. And so that means that I have to wade into that mess to do what I do. And certain people came back to me on Thread and said, that's bullshit. That's just your ego talk, and you don't want to give up this and you want to give up that. So, well, maybe, but I am suspicious of any morality that requires action from other people. When your morality dictates the behavior of others, this is where I start to have a major problem. Perhaps, you see what I'm saying here? When you decide what other people should, it's not very far from that mentality to, I don't believe in abortion, so you shouldn't have one either. My God doesn't believe in gay marriage, so gay people shouldn't be allowed to be married. It's not very far for that mentality to begin dictating the morality of other people. And so, again, while I can see the argument of, don't give Elon Musk the views on his ads, I also have a major problem when you start linking that to your morality. And but we see that again in America, and we're back to where we started here, which is lining up with picking sides and trying to reduce the world to very simple black and white terms. The world's not that simple, and it's not going to be that simple. And I think we're way over time now, aren't we? I just looked up at the clock and realized we're like 20 minutes after time. How's this always? That always happens. David's stuck in winter in Vermont. He doesn't care how long he stays online. So where'd Bob go? Bob just left. He's like, it said time's up. He just walked off. Just walked off. Just left.
I didn't really leave. I just had to make sure everything came out okay. The show, you guys have been tremendous today, and I just want to say thank you, Jim. Yeah. You drove how many hours yesterday and are here this morning?
Yeah, about 14. I think 14 and a half hours yesterday. I admit that I may have had the Cooper in sport mode for most of the drive, and it's entirely possible that I may have exceeded local speed ordinances. I was trying to beat the snow and trying to get far enough south that that I wasn't driving in snow, because on Black Friday weekend with 7 lanes of traffic in places like Indianapolis, the last thing I want is snow and ice. And but I made it. I've driven this route 18 times by my count this year, and so it's 1,000 miles, just under 1,000 miles each way, and deal soundtrack down. And I will say to you that if you listen to every Warren Zevon song from end to end, it covers just about 15 hours. And so, you got to turn it loud though. You got to make it loud. So, but it's a long drive. I'm pretty tired right now. But my grandson is in the house. My daughter-in-law is here. My grandson is here, and so I'm going to log off talking to you fine people and go play with a 1-year-old for a while, because there's just nothing better.
And David, you've got the same opportunity if all the sound effects we've been getting are correct.
Yeah, well, Layla fell asleep in her high chair, which is fine. And Aiden is walking around complaining that he wants mommy and daddy. They went for a walk. And so I got to go check and make sure he hasn't gotten himself killed. That's all.
Yeah,
that was my instructions. As long as he doesn't kill himself, they're fine. So.
Well, then I'm going to punch the end stream button. Thank you both. You're both an incredible people. But before you go, I got to remind you one thing. We have next week Ellen Datlow.
Oh, Ellen's great.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Ellen is awesome, and this is for her first appearance on the show. And so tune in, and to somebody that you just heard, two of the greatest minds in America, or at least on the East Coast.
Yeah. Tune in for Ellen, because Ellen's awesome. She's great people, and I got to meet her earlier this year in in Chicago, and she's fantastic people. We've known each other online for a long time, but I actually got to meet her at Worldcon, and so she's fantastic people. She's a great writer. Definitely tune in for that show.
And an editor to be respected.
Absolutely.
And that said, I will forego any other comments and just say goodbye and thank you for the little plus time at the end.
All right, hit the button.
I just did.